cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
It's 9 p.m, I'm Patrick Christys, and we have a very special show tonight.
I'm like, no, I just need to get back to my friends. No, I just need to get back to my friends. That was all that I could say. And then he starts touching my boobs.
An incredibly brave teenager has waived her right to anonymity to detail her sexual assault at the hands of an Iranian asylum seeker.
I have nothing to be ashamed about. I can't change what happened to me whatsoever, but if I can just do a little bit to save someone else from going through what I went through, then I will do that.
Tonight she has her say and says what she wants to happen to him.
So I would feel most safe if he was deported, because then I know that I wouldn't bump into him.
Her mum also has a message to Sir Keir Starmer and Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood.
And I'd like to ask, if it was their daughter, would they still have the same views? Would they still be doing what they're doing if it was one of their own?
Well, look, in other news, we are also going to talk a bit about this.
Do not have a blasphemy law in this country, and we must not ever. It's really important that we have freedom of religion in this country as well as freedom of speech.
Well, today, Labour's new Islamophobia definition is revealed, and it's worse than anyone could have imagined. Also,
a little while you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth. Literally, they put words in my mouth.
well, to be honest, it looks a lot like the end of the BBC as we know it. I mean, they might actually have to show adverts now, and of course, they're going to fight President Trump in court. On my panel tonight, we have got Kai Wilshaw, Connie Shaw, and Layla Cunningham. And what was going through this man's mind? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. The brave, defiant words of a young woman who survived an asylum seeker sex attack. Next.
Patrick, thank you. The top stories this hour. Donald Trump says he's suing the BBC, launching a multi-billion-dollar legal action over what he calls a doctored edit of his January the 6th speech. The US president says a Panorama documentary falsely made it appear he called for violence at the Capitol, accusing the broadcaster of defamation and misleading editing. The BBC apologised for giving a mistaken impression, but insists there's no basis for a defamation claim. In a statement, a spokesperson said the broadcaster will defend the case. UK unemployment has risen to 5.1%, its highest level since early 2021. The ONS says young people are being hit the hardest, with unemployment among 18 to 24-year-olds jumping by 85,000. Elsewhere, UK police are stepping up armed patrols on the transport network and in other crowded places as they warn of an increased terror risk over the festive period. Senior officers from counter-terror policing and the British Transport Police have issued a joint call for vigilance following the recent attacks targeting the Jewish community in Manchester and Australia, warning that mass gatherings over the Christmas and New Year period remain an attractive target for terrorists. That's as new details are emerging about the gunman behind the massacre in Sydney. Indian police say 50-year-old Sajid Akram was originally from the southern city of Hyderabad and had limited contact with family there. Authorities in India say relatives were unaware of any radical beliefs or activities as Australian police continue to examine possible overseas links. Detectives are investigating claims the two gunmen travelled to the Philippines weeks before the attack for what's being described as military-style training. 15 people were killed in Sunday's shooting, 9 in a critical condition. The Prime Minister says the attack appears to have been motivated by Islamic State ideology. Elsewhere, the driver who ploughed into crowds at Liverpool's Premier League victory parade has been jailed for 21 years and 6 months. Paul Doyle injured 134 supporters after driving his car into fans. The court heard the 54-year-old lost his temper and acted in what a judge called inexplicable fury. Dashcam footage showed supporters thrown onto the bonnet and dragged beneath the car as Doyle shouted abuse and accelerated through those closed streets. Doyle pleaded guilty to 31 offences, including attempting to cause grievous bodily harm to a 6-month-old baby. And FIFA has introduced cheaper World Cup tickets for national teams' most loyal fans after an outcry over pricing erupted last week. Fans who are part of the national team travel clubs and loyalty schemes discovered last week that the cheapest available tickets for the final would be priced at over £3,000, while England fans wishing to follow the team from the first match to the final would have to spend over £5,000 as a minimum. However, FIFA has now announced that 10% of the participant member association allocation for each match will be priced at $60, that's £45, including for the final. The decision follows meetings between senior officials in Doha this week, where federations are understood to have shared concerns about the pricing model. Those are the latest headlines for now. It's over to Patrick.
Good evening. Over the course of the last few weeks, we have seen a huge spike in reports of asylum seeker and illegal immigrant sex offences. Illegal migrants have been found guilty of murders, rapes and sexual assaults, almost always against young, vulnerable women and girls. Just today, the Daily Mail ran a report mapping the areas where criminal asylum seeker sex attackers had preyed on vulnerable women since breaking into Britain. What you never hear is the victims and the survivors themselves. Tonight, that changes. Abby is a young teenage girl who was out doing what normal teenage girls do, going for a few drinks with her mates in her local town, a place that she felt safe, a place she should have been safe. This is the story of how an innocent, childlike game of hide and seek after a night out turned into a predatory, life-changing sexual assault. The perpetrator? An Iranian asylum seeker who was being supported by a Christian charity. Ahmadreza Khalafi has pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault earlier this month and is remanded in custody. Young Abby was sexually assaulted, and when her attacker was on bail, he was placed just a few doors down from her without her knowledge. Over the course of tonight's show, you're going to hear from Abby, you're going to hear from her mum, Stacey. Now, we are supporting Abby and her family throughout this entire process. They approached us because they wanted to tell their story. We've been in communication with them for the last few weeks, and they are adamant that they want Abby's story out there to give strength and hope to other victims, but also to show that she will not be defeated by what happened to her. Now, I want to warn viewers and listeners that this programme will contain distressing content, including discussion of sexual assault and mental health difficulties, including suicidal thoughts. Now, if you are affected by any of the issues raised, support is available online at the survivorstrust.org or samaritans.org. It will be uncomfortable to watch this at times, very difficult to watch. But please don't look away. This is the first part of Abby's story. Abby, thank you very much for letting us come round and talk to you today.
No problem.
I really do appreciate it. I'm just going to start by asking you to cast your mind back a few days before this attack. What was life like for you? What was a normal day for Abby?
It was as every teenage girl does. I didn't have a worry in the world whatsoever. I could leave my house without being scared of who's around the corner, what the night could await. I had no worries whatsoever because I hadn't experienced anything as terrible before, so I never worried, which it sounds silly because you should always worry, but I didn't. I had no worry in the world. Would just go out with my friends, not thinking about safety or anything like that. I'd just go out and have a nice time and not think about who was there or what was lurking.
Could you explain to me what happened on the day of the attack then? So let's start from the morning.
Yeah.
You wake up, you've got plans for that day.
Yeah. So at the start I initially had work in the morning through to the afternoon, and then I went and met my friend and we came back here and we got ready, as you do, because we was excited to go out. And this was one of the times that we got the bus from my house to the train station, then caught the train to wherever we was going. We arrived there, as you normally do, went to the first pub and then went to the second and stayed there for a while, and it was only the whole night was fine. Nothing strange happened. It was just like every other weekend until the end of it, and that's when everything went bad. Yeah.
So then what happened in that evening, as I believe as you were leaving the venue?
So we was leaving the venue, and some might say I had a little bit too much to drink, and we was all just really happy, as I am when I've had a little bit to drink, and we was running around, and I thought it would be a fantastic idea to play hide and seek. So I'm running around. It's like a little circle, so you can just run as I was. And all my friends are trying to find me, but I liked the chase of it. I thought it was funny. And then I found a bush to hide in, which I thought was a great hiding spot. So I hid in there for a little bit, and then I thought I heard my friend coming in, and it was not my friend whatsoever. Yeah.
So then what happened?
So I'm hiding for a little bit, and I hear the leaves rustling, and I turn around thinking it's my friend, but I couldn't see anything. and all I heard was a Middle Eastern accent ask me if I'm okay, and that's when I knew that it was in fact not my friend, and I knew that something was wrong. And I said, yes, I just need to get back to my friend. And that's when he comes up to me and he grabs me by my face and he just starts kissing me. I then pull away, as I did not want that whatsoever, and I'm like, no, I just need to get back to my friends. No, I just need to get back to my friends. That was all that I could say. And then he starts touching my boobs. So throughout the night when I was playing hide and seek, I lost my t-shirt somehow. I think it was from when I was running away from my friend. So I just had like a gym sports top on. So he's got his hand and he's gone under there and started touching my boobs. And all that will come out is, no, I need to get back to my friends. But he did not say anything. He didn't stop. He didn't take any notice. And so that goes on, and then he starts making his way down and he unbuttons my jeans and does the zip and pulls my trousers down. And I'm frozen. I don't know what to do. And he picks me up from behind, like by the back of my thighs, and puts me on this brick wall. And he's still touching me, and all I can say is, no, I need to get back to my friends. But he isn't saying anything. All I can hear is like heavy breathing and feel his stubble, and then he gets his hand and he starts to make his way down. So he goes onto my pubic area, and now I'm just completely frozen. And bearing in mind, I can't see anything. I don't know what he looks like, anything, because it was so dark. So he goes to my pubic area, and that is just when I black out, and everything goes black and I can't remember until I hear someone shout, there's two people in the bush, one of them's undressed, and I feel like that's what woke me up. And then after that I just hear rustling away, so it's kind of a sigh of relief that he's gone, he's not here anymore. And I look around and I can just see blue flashing lights. I'm like, it's the police. So I'm in the wall, there's like several steps, like little walls to climb up, so I'm climbing up them, but I had to pull up my trousers first. So like in the back of my mind I'm thinking, what's happened? But I'm just so focused on getting to them blue lights to just feel a bit of safety after what happened. So I've climbed up and I've seen these blue lights, and there's two police women standing there, and I've just ran to them and I've just collapsed onto them, and I'm crying and I'm in hysterics because I didn't understand what had just happened to me.
You remember repeatedly saying no?
Yeah, over and over. All I could say was, no, I need to get back to my friends, no, I need to get back to my friends, repeatedly. Yeah.
And as you were saying that, it didn't deter him, he carried on?
Yeah, it didn't deter him, he didn't stop, he didn't even say any more. The only thing he said throughout that whole interaction that I can remember is, are you okay? And then after he starts doing what he was doing, he never said anything, never responded to me when I was saying no.
How has that situation made you feel?
It makes you feel so vulnerable, and this is my own body, and my control of my own body was taken away from me. In the state that I was in, I was already vulnerable, but for someone to be able to just so easily take advantage of me, it was a horrible feeling, because I felt like my body wasn't my own body anymore and I wasn't in control of it anymore.
Do you feel as though he was lurking like a predator, waiting for someone like you in a vulnerable state to come along?
Yes, so the reason I believe that is because the club/pub thing that we was in shut at 2 a.m. and we was hanging around for a bit, and this whole interaction started at about 20 to 3, quarter to 3 a.m. So a good 45 minutes after the club had shut, there was not really anyone around, really, apart from him. Yeah.
So you've run into the arms of the police.
Yeah.
Really. What have you said? What have they said? What's happened then?
It's all a bit of a blur, the whole police interaction, I just remember just breaking down to them, crying, and they're asking me what happened, and I was telling them, but I was speaking really quickly. They couldn't really understand me, especially because I was crying as well. And my friend starts to come over, but they ask her to step away so they could talk to me. So I'm just trying to explain as best as I can what had happened. And in the end, they decide to just take me to the police station, which one of my friends came with me. And I got back to the police station. I had a bit of a interview with them and told them what happened.
And that must have been especially difficult for you, because by the sounds of things, as he has progressed with this sexual assault, you have blacked out a bit. What do you think that was that caused you to black out there?
I think it was, I like to believe that it was my own body protecting me from knowing what was happening. Because I already, with what I remember, it's still a lot of trauma to try and heal from and move past. But I feel like if I remembered what else could possibly have gone on, then it would have been a lot more to have flashbacks of and to remember.
Talk to me then about the impact that this has had on your life so far.
It has affected every single part of my life. You know, before this all happened, I felt like I was, you know, a normal teenage girl, you know, living her life, and now I feel like I'm living with precaution. Every time I leave my house, I'm wondering who's around the corner. You know, I never feel safe, not even in my own home, which is horrible. It's took a big toll on my mental health as well, especially where I felt so out of control of my own body. I feel like I don't have any control of any aspect of my life, because it can be taken away from you so quickly, and you never realise how vulnerable you are until you are put in that certain situation. So I've struggled with a lot with my mental health, suicidal thoughts, you know, questioning my life. Like, you know, you always get the thoughts like, is it worth it? You know, what's the point? You know, my control was taken away from me. You know, I feel like it's not my body anymore. I feel like I'm like away from my body, like I'm not in control of it anymore. It affected my work, so I've recently lost my job, and I was having to take a lot of time off to try and heal, and I had to have adjustments put in place because I would get triggered a lot by little things. It could be anything, just random things could trigger me at any moment.
Do you mind me asking what kind of things can trigger you?
So, for example, the same accent can trigger me a lot. And I remember it was always this guilt, because even people closest to me, like my little brother Cyrus, who's only 19 months, I remember getting a trigger from him. I remember I had gone to the toilet and he's come in and he's pulling on my trousers, and that was an instant throwback, because that is what he'd done. So if it's anything related to it, an accent, like a face look-alike, you know, anything that he done in that night, it will be a immediate trigger. Yeah.
Do you feel safe at home now?
Not fully, no, because, you know, I thought I felt safe there, and it turned out I wasn't. You know, it was a place that I've known for many years and have always been there, and I've always felt safe there, and then instantly I'm not. So it's really made me question, you know, where am I safe? Because now I'm in the mindset of you're not safe anywhere, because you never know who is around or what could happen. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you're going to be hearing a lot more from Abby over the course of this show. Just a reminder that if you've been affected by any of the issues raised so far this evening, support is available by visiting the survivorstrust.org or samaritans.org. Abby is going to go on to talk about why she wants this man deported. She's going to go on to give a direct message to those people who downplay the severity and the frequency of asylum seeker and illegal migrant sex attacks. She's going to go on to give a powerful message to the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. But also, very shortly, you are going to hear from Abby's mum.
So I literally feel powerless. But it's been awful. Obviously, ultimately, this happened to Abby, but it's affected the whole family, not just me. It's affected literally everybody.
And like I said, much more from Abby, who does talk bravely about why she wants to waive her right to anonymity.
But if I can get my face and my voice out there and tell people what has happened to me and what he has done, then I will do that and hopefully save someone else from going through what I went through.
Stay tuned for part 2 of Abby's story.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This show we're hearing from Abby, yet another victim of Britain's broken borders, who's bravely waived her right to anonymity to talk about the devastating evening that she was attacked sexually by an Iranian asylum seeker. He's pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault. He is currently behind bars. Here's what she wants to happen after he served his sentence.
So I would feel most safe if he was deported, because then I know that I wouldn't bump into him.
More on that shortly, but this is every parent's worst nightmare. The child that you've loved and cared for all their life goes on a totally normal night out, and they're attacked by a man who many people will think should never have even been in this country. Now, later, yes, you're going to hear more from young Abby, sexually abused by that Iranian asylum seeker. But this is the first part of her mum, Stacey's story. And as you'll hear, when these foreign men abuse British girls, it isn't just the girl who suffers. Now, again, what you'll hear is distressing, and we are supporting Abby and her family throughout this. But they want to share their story to try to help others who are going through the same situation. Stacey, could I ask you about that day in question and that night? So, what happens for you? How do you find out about this attack?
The first thing, I didn't actually know about it until the Saturday evening. I'd woke up early hours of Saturday morning, see that Abby wasn't home, but that was not normal, but I knew she'd gone out. We'd actually had a bit of an argument the week before because she'd gone out and was meant to come home and didn't update me that she had changed her plans. And only that day before she went out, Mum, I need to grow up a little bit, you know, I'm not a baby anymore, you need to let go, I'm all right. So when I woke up and see that she wasn't home, I instantly wanted to call her, and then I thought, do you know what, no, let go a little bit, stop being so overprotective, let her have her fun, she'll be fine. Got up the next morning, checked in her room, see that she was home, she was asleep at that point, her friend was with her, didn't think anything of it. We went for a family get together, came home that evening, and it wasn't until I come home that evening that Abby was in a bit of a state. We could just tell that she wasn't right. She was trying to hurry out the door. My husband questioned, like, where are you going? I'm just going to a friend's house. Okay, how are you getting there? And then she said, oh, the police are outside, they're taking me. She was like, what do you mean the police are outside, they're taking you? Like, you need to explain, come back, explain. So she said, I was sexually assaulted last night. So you can imagine the shock for us was just like, what do you mean? She told us briefly what had happened, and then she left to go to her friends. Wasn't until really the following day she come back, and we said, like, we need to talk to you, like, explain to us what's happened. She told us all what had happened. So to find out that she'd been to the police station and everything, that they'd been back the day before and taken her, obviously I didn't know anything about that, so I wasn't there to go with her, which was really, really upsetting. Me and Abby are really close, so initially I was quite surprised that she hadn't told me. But then she explained that Abby, being Abby, doesn't want to worry anybody. And was like, Mum, you've got enough going on. I didn't want to worry you. I wanted you to go out and have a good day. I didn't want to put that stress on you. But for me, it was really disappointing because I would have wanted to go with her.
How has the whole thing made you feel? Because you obviously want your daughter to be able to go out with friends and do what normal teenagers do. Yeah. But obviously this has happened, hasn't it? How's that made you feel?
It's been really difficult because I've always said to Abby, you know, life's for living. Go out there, enjoy yourself, make memories. So I've always kind of pushed her to go out and experience the world. And Abby was always such a fun-loving, so much life in a literally just a fun girl. So from a mum's point of view, to now see the change in her has probably been the hardest bit to take.
Talk to me about that change.
She's just not the same person anymore. She's obviously still lovely and beautiful, but her zest for life has gone. She's depressed, she's scared, she doesn't even feel safe in her own home. There's many nights where she can't sleep and she's terrified. She closes her eyes and she gets flashbacks. So there's been many nights that she's called me for me to go and sleep in her room with her. For your child not to feel safe in their own home has been really difficult. She doesn't go out as much anymore. If she does go out, she doesn't really drink. You can just see the fear in her. She was always such an innocent girl, always sees the best in everybody. never got a bad word to say about anyone. And now she questions everything and everyone and everyone's intentions. She's just not the same person anymore. It's really changed her.
As a mother, how has this affected you? Has this changed you as a mother, do you think, at all?
Yeah, it's been a really painful experience. As a parent, you want to protect your child. That's my job, and I feel like I failed doing that. I don't feel like she's been protected. To have gone through something so traumatic and then to continue feeling like she's been let down, and as a mum I've been powerless to that. There's been very little that I feel like I've been able to do other than be there for Abby. I can't do anything, so I literally feel powerless, but it's been awful. Obviously ultimately this happened to Abby, but it's affected the whole family, not just me. It's affected literally everybody. It's been a really tough time, and it's just to know that your child's been hurt and violated is painful.
It's not just traumatised Abby, has it?
No, it's been tough.
And if Abby's attacker was here now, what would you say to him?
Why do you feel the right to do that to somebody? Why? No one deserves that. What on earth makes you think that you can come to our country and do that to somebody? It's sick.
Do you think your life will ever be the same?
No. I think as a parent you always worry. You're always going to have that worry about your child, but it's just heightened, that worry. Now I don't only have to worry about Abby being out and other people, I have to worry about Abby herself and her own mental health. As Abby mentioned, she's had suicidal thoughts, she's had thoughts of hurting herself. So it's just an additional worry now that I have to worry about her, not just the outside world.
Abby has chosen to waive that right to anonymity. You have also chosen to come forward and speak out about this. Could you just explain why you support Abby's decision here, and why you as well feel like you want to put your name and your face forward?
I think for Abby, and I can see it as well, that this whole process, she's been kind of hidden in the background. I feel like he's had his day in court, he's had his chance to speak. Abby hasn't had any of that. Abby is literally, not other than her ABE video evidence, she's not once been able to speak. And I think that was important for her to get her voice out. Abby being Abby thinks of everybody else before herself, and I think her main message has always been that unfortunately she can't change what's happened to her, but she wants other people out there that this may have happened to maybe get a little bit of strength and feel a little bit of support, that you can come forward. Abby stated many times she's the victim. Why she's felt hidden all this time, and she doesn't want to feel hidden anymore. And she wants that message out there. She wants her story to be told. Even, like I say, it's not going to make any difference for her, but that awareness might make a difference for somebody else. And for me, it's, you know, parents need to be aware that our kids are not safe. I never thought it would happen to my child. You never think it's going to happen to yourself, but it does. It does, and my fear is doing everything I can to stop this to happen to someone else's child.
Well, look, shortly you're going to be hearing again from Abby's mum, Stacey, there, about the moment she came face to face with the attacker in court. I thought the standout line there for me was when Stacey says, "What makes you think you can come to our country and do that to somebody?" You're going to hear more from Abby shortly. And this is, again, a classic story of our time in Britain, isn't it? An Iranian asylum seeker comes to Britain, appears to claim that they are converting to Christianity, and indeed was supported, even after the charges were brought, by a Christian charity.
I don't believe it, to be honest. I believe, you know, Christianity is a strong faith, and it's a beautiful religion.
We're going to hear Abby's view on that. Stay tuned. It's Patrick Christys tonight, only on GB News.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you're thinking of heading overseas for a holiday, well, you'll find plenty of fine weather in Greece and Cyprus, Italy too, but fairly showery with a keen northerly breeze for the Canary Islands and some heavy rain across eastern Spain. That's going to stick around for a couple of days. Meanwhile, ahead of another area of low pressure, Italy and Greece are largely fine, but there is another low on the way, arriving into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, after what has been a largely fine day for many of us, things are set to change through the next 24 hours, with some wet weather going to arrive in time for tomorrow. That's all due to a weather system that's currently out towards the west of us. But before this, we have a ridge of high pressure, and so relatively quiet weather across us through large chunks of the night. As a result, we're going to have a lot of dry weather, yes, but also quite a lot of clear skies, and with that we're going to see some mist and fog patches developing, particularly across central and eastern parts. They could be quite dense. Also worth noting that temperatures are going to drop a little bit lower than some recent nights, so a chillier start to the day tomorrow, could even be a touch of frost around. So first thing tomorrow, a chilly start, yes, largely dry across central and southern parts of England and also across the east, but watch out for those fog patches. A different story towards the north and west, however. That front that I mentioned at the start, that will have spread its way in, and so we're going to see some fairly persistent and at times heavy rain across many places, and with all that wet weather the winds will be strengthening as well, so a blustery wet start to the day for most. Clinging on to the dry weather across the far east of England through much of the day. Elsewhere it's going to be pretty wet at times. The highest rainfall totals likely to build up over parts of South Wales and southwest England. Dartmoor, for example, could see 40 to 60 millimetres, enough to cause some disruption. Temperatures on paper are a few degrees above average for the time of year, but with the unsettled weather, well, it's not going to feel particularly pleasant. Then as we go into Thursday, there's more rain set to push its way in, a swathe of even heavier rain coming in from the south-southwest, so watch out for that, as it could cause some more disruption with the ground already so saturated. Friday for many actually looks like a largely fine end to the week, but a more changeable pattern into the weekend. Bye-bye.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Over the course of tonight's show, you are hearing from brave Abby. who's waived her right to anonymity to speak out about being sexually assaulted by an Iranian asylum seeker. This very much appears to be a story of our time, doesn't it? Every single day for the last couple of weeks, it seems as though we've had a story about some kind of asylum seeker or illegal immigrant sexually assaulting or abusing, very often, a young girl. We've got a short snippet here now of Abi's message to the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. If Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, or Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, were here in this room now, what would you say to them?
I'd want them to maybe rethink how much they're letting in, because, you know, it's affecting so many people, including myself, and it's...
We're going to hear a lot more on that, by the way, but just as well to give you another little snippet of what's to come. This is Abi's mum and her message, Stacey's message, to, again, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary.
And I'd like to ask, if it was their daughter, would they still have the same views? Would they still be doing what they're doing if it was one of their own?
Look, just to debrief what we've heard so far, we're joined this evening by Reform UK Westminster City Councillor. We've got Layla Cunningham. We've also, of course, got GBNews contributor and political commentator Kai Wilshaw and the External Affairs Officer at the Free Speech Union, Connie Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it's very difficult to talk about, but I think it's an important topic nonetheless. Layla, I'll start with you. Based on everything you've heard so far there, I mean, this you know, Abi, as young as she looks, she's 19, but as young as she looks, you know, she is really the face behind a lot of the articles that we are seeing at the moment about asylum seeker sex assaults.
I mean, yeah, I mean, no woman should have to go through what Abi went through, and I don't feel it's a random tragedy. You know, this is a consequence of political decisions, and not to politicise it, but Abi said it herself. She's like, please stop letting them in, because I get told off for saying, you know, by the left, or they're not all rapists that come on a boat. Granted, they're not all rapists, but even if a small amount are, it's women and girls like Abi who pay the price. And that's something the government has to recognise, because you cannot place these men that we don't know who they are in towns and villages next to women and girls. You cannot claim... And you know, they've released their whole new strategy on protection of women and girls this week, but nothing addresses this. So it's so disingenuous.
Well, and you've got this added detail that he was being supported and housed by a Christian charity group even after the initial charges were brought against him. And it plays into that narrative, doesn't it, that a lot of people are coming from countries like Iran, claiming that they are Christian, then behaving in an incredibly un-Christian way. Kind of the thing that stood out for me there was the predatory aspect to this behaviour, lurking in the dark down an alleyway by a club/bar where he may well have known that people were going to stumble out of.
Another thing that you'll hear leftists say is, oh, you're most likely to be assaulted by someone you know, because they pretend they don't know what per capita means. And when we look at nearly all of these cases, from what I have seen, are random attacks. It's a very specific kind of sexual assault, and when I was at school, when the Me Too movement was kicking off, there was a lot of backlash from young men who were annoyed that all men were being demonised, and there was this phrase, not all men. And the women, understandably so, said, no, we know it's not all men, but it's enough men for us to be scared of all men. Afghans in particular, and of course, I won't be surprised, although I don't have the facts, I would not be surprised, and it's, I think, a common sense that men from countries such as Iran, where women are subjugated, are far more likely to be committing these types of crimes. So if we could apply that same logic of not all men, when they were talking about British men in that context, or American men, or men from Western countries, when, according to the Migration Observatory, they think it's 14.5 times more likely for an Afghan than British nationals to commit sexual assault. So where are all the feminists? When the leftists say, oh, well, actually, let's not look at this because you're more likely to be attacked by someone you already know. It's every time, and someone said this to me the other day on the BBC, said, Connie, why are you so obsessed with this? Because of people who say things like that, who, whenever we talk about this issue, try and make us look the other way, and it was the same thing with the grooming gangs.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that there are people watching tonight, you know, in positions of power, maybe in Downing Street, who will be seeing what Abi's had to say so far and what she's got to say going forward. Because believe you me, there's some yeah, incredibly powerful stuff just around the corner as well. Look, Kai, I know it's difficult to come on and talk about this subject matter, especially as a bloke, right? So, thank you for coming on. What would you say to what we've heard so far? And Abby and her mum's... It's difficult not to politicise it, isn't it, really? And I don't want it to seem like we are shamelessly politicising something, because that's not the ambition here at all. But, they obviously want this guy deported. They are obviously critical of the asylum system as it currently is. So your views on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think what Abby's done is incredibly brave. There's no doubt loads of stories out there like hers, and one story is one too many. And the really harrowing thing about this story is it's not just, yes, it's about migration, but it's also about a confluence of things that I like to think is basically state failure. It's akin to what we saw with Hadush Kabatu, where the prisons service, the parole office, the state of accommodation, often run by local councils and so on, to house asylum seekers. It's all completely useless. It's falling to bits. And what that means is we need to look at these things in the round, but to shy away from the questions of migration is not the right one. I don't think the Labour government is doing that. I think they're very late to the game in terms of realising, actually, we do need to look at culture, for instance, with the grooming gangs. They have now realised that that is something they need to come on to, and that's something that they should look at when they're thinking about migration and crime too, is the impact of culture. Because otherwise, stories like this are just going to gain momentum and they won't have control of the situation even further than they have.
One of the things that we're going to hear later, by the way, and this is all coming in the next hour, but one of the things we're going to hear is Abby's testimony that the police moved this guy in about 3 or 4 doors down from an address that they knew she was staying at, and then didn't tell us. This was whilst he was on bail, OK? They didn't tell her. She was frequenting that address for months. She had dance class around the corner, all sorts. At this point, he knew what she looked like. She didn't really know what he looked like. And to Kai's point there about this being like a multitude of different failures, that, I think, is a biggie.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this in court. So the way the Bail Act works is that you remand someone in custody, which means you don't give them... Everyone has the right to bail. Unless there are certain conditions, you're going to likely commit further offences, you don't have community ties, and this, the judge or the court should have taken into account that he might commit further offences. But I imagine that there was probably a deportation order against him as well, or he had breached his immigration stay, or he should have by virtue of committing this, and yet he was still allowed to roam free. I mean, the real issue is a government that has a casual disregard for women's safety. It's not a focus for them. And real safeguarding, for me, means a government that knows who's there and who's vetted. And when you have a young girl come who's vetted by a foreign person who really shouldn't be here, and then you release them on bail into the community, it is, like you say, a multi-agency failure.
Yeah, and Connie, I mean, again, so many kind of standout bits from that testimony so far, but, I mean, it's just another totally needless sexual assault. Like, a totally self-inflicted sexual assault might be a better way of putting that. Where you feel as though, we are being, like, having suicidal empathy to some of these people, and being helped by a Christian charity even after he was charged. What are they playing at, some of these people?
I didn't want to get to the point where I became so sort of having these sort of dark thoughts about this, that I think there is some sexual tourism going on by men who are coming from certain countries to the West. And like Abby's mum said, how dare you do that? How dare you come to our country supposedly for your own safety, and we welcome you, and this is how you repay us. And again, when leftists say to you, and I'm not saying all leftists, but some of them will say, why is this type worse? What is it just because you hate migrants? No, it's a violation of a higher order. How dare you come to this country
also, Connie,
and behave like that?
When people say that we've got homegrown sexual rapists, of course we do. We're not denying that. And we need to be tougher sentencing. But these guys don't have to be here.
No.
It is a government decision to place them in towns and villages. They should be detained because we do not know their history.
Let me just play you a clip. Sorry, Kai, we'll come to you straight away after this, but I just want to touch base on a particular clip about how catastrophically let down... Abby's been let down by everyone here, hasn't she? The broken borders, the whole thing. This is also let down by the police. You find out that presumably around the same time, maybe actually 24 hours, 48 hours after that, they had also dropped him off. How close are we talking?
We're talking a few houses down the road, yeah.
And they didn't tell you this?
No. I was not informed.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's just, it's failure on top of failure kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what else is under-examined in this discussion, you're right to say that, you know, we all can disagree on migration policy, but actually what so many parties failed to have an answer for is what happens to asylum seekers when they're here. The fact is we have a huge population of people who are already here, and they're being housed, you know, either in hotels, HMOs, but we haven't really explored, even within those circumstances, within hotels, are they safe enough? What happens when, you know, you have a population of people with nothing to do who are going to agglomerate and have a certain culture, they're going to sort of join friendship groups or gangs or whatever. What happens then when they're here? It's all well and good trying to bring down waiting lists and so on, but actually there needs to be some sort of better way of housing people in this country.
Well, I'll tell you
it takes into account some of those, you know, differences on migration policy, fine. Processing people quicker, fine. But actually, surely there's just a better way of housing these people in the first place.
I tell you the better way is to not house them at all and detain and deport them. No, hang on, because what you don't realise is that the council, through various legislation, the council has to prioritise for social housing those in need.
Yeah.
So asylum seekers are going to the top of the list, while British people are going to the bottom.
But that being what it is. That's the system that we live in at the minute. What can we do right now?
We remove them from hotels and detain them in detention centres.
But is there
no one wants them to be roaming around.
Do you really believe that they're going to be safer, or the community is going to be safer, somewhere that's being put up on the hoof instead of hotels that have security around them?
If they're detained. There's no security around hotels. Actually, the security around hotels is to protect the migrants in the hotels.
Well,
it's not to protect the public.
Just on this point, one thing that we're going to hear a bit more of in this next hour, and I'll put this to you, Connie, and this is a really powerful statement from Stacey, actually, the mother here, about she came face to face with her daughter's attacker in court, and she said the level of support he had around him, whilst her daughter was at home on her own, just made her feel sick. It feels like we've got our priorities wrong, Connie.
I mean, it's just very, very hard to put yourself in the shoes of the people who are doing this. Like you said earlier, Patrick, it's suicidal empathy. The extent to which people's political ideology, and I'm just assuming these people's motives, the political ideology, how much it can blind people, it's so destroying to their own narrative that we have to be overly kind to these people that we know nothing about, to the point where it blinds them from even accepting that something horrific has happened here.
All right, sorry, just say, thank you very much for everything so far. We've obviously set the scene here, and Abby's outlined her attack, her mother's outlined how it makes her feel. In the coming hour, we'll get into the stuff that they kind of really want to say about how powerful, what they want to happen to this monster. Here's a little clip.
So I would feel most safe if he was deported, because then I know that I wouldn't bump into him.
Abby's message to the Home Secretary, to the Prime Minister. Her mum talks about how she came face to face with the attacker at court and what she wants done about it as well. All that coming your way in the next hour. Don't miss it, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, after what has been a largely fine day for many of us, things are set to change through the next 24 hours, with some wet weather going to arrive in time for tomorrow. That's all due to a weather system that's currently out towards the west of us. But before this, we have a ridge of high pressure, and so relatively quiet weather across us through large chunks of the night. As a result, we're going to have a lot of dry weather, yes, but also quite a lot of clear skies. And with that, we're going to see some mist and fog patches developing, particularly across central and eastern parts. They could be quite dense. Also worth noting that temperatures are going to drop a little bit lower than some recent nights, so a chillier start to the day tomorrow. Could even be a touch of frost around. So first thing tomorrow, a chilly start, yes. Largely dry across central and southern parts of England and also across the east, but watch out for those fog patches. A different story towards the north and west, however. That front that I mentioned at the start, that will have spread its way in, and so we're going to see some fairly persistent and at times heavy rain across many places, and with all that wet weather, the winds will be strengthening as well. So a blustery, wet start to the day for most. Clinging on to the dry weather across the far east of England through much of the day. Elsewhere, it's going to be pretty wet at times. The highest rainfall totals likely to build up over parts of South Wales and southwest England. Dartmoor, for example, could see 40 to 60 millimetres, enough to cause some disruption. Temperatures on paper are a few degrees above average for the time of year, but with the unsettled weather, well, it's not going to feel particularly pleasant. Then as we go into Thursday, there's more rain set to push its way in, a swathe of even heavier rain coming in from the south-southwest. So watch out for that, as it could cause some more disruption with the ground already so saturated. Friday for many actually looks like a largely fine end to the week, but a more changeable pattern into the weekend. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the greatest cash prize of the Great British Giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m, I'm Patrick Christys, and we have a very special show for you tonight.
I'm like, no, I just need to get back to my friends. No, I just need to get back to my friends. That was all that I could say. And then he starts touching my boobs.
An incredibly brave teenager has waived her right to anonymity to detail her sexual assault at the hands of an Iranian asylum seeker.
I have nothing to be ashamed about. I can't change what happened to me whatsoever. But if I can just do a little bit to save someone else from going through what I went through, then I will do that.
Tonight, Abby has her say, and she outlines what she wants to happen to the attacker.
So I would feel most safe if he was deported, because then I know that I wouldn't bump into him.
Her mum Stacey has also bravely come forward, and she has, frankly, a pretty blistering message for Sir Keir Starmer and the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood.
And I'd like to ask, if it was their daughter, would they still have the same views? Would they still be doing what they're doing if it was one of their own?
Yeah, well, on my panel tonight, we do have political commentator Kai Wilshaw. We've got the Free Speech Union's Connie Shaw and Reform UK councillor Layla Cunningham. We are also going to give you the front pages as well, where there will be other news on, and no doubt I think this will probably be all over them. Of course, what you're looking at there, these scenes in the aftermath of that Liverpool celebration parade attack. What was going through that guy's head today? He was jailed for 21.5 years. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. All right. Every single day, it seems as though we are reporting on an asylum seeker or an illegal immigrant who has committed a horrific sexual assault. Tonight, in a rare interview, you are going to hear from a brave survivor who's waived her right to anonymity. That's next.
Patrick, thank you. The top stories. Donald Trump says he's suing the BBC, launching a multi-billion-dollar legal action over what he calls a doctored edit of his January the 6th speech. The US president says a Panorama documentary falsely made it appear he called for violence at the Capitol, accusing the broadcaster of defamation and misleading editing. The BBC apologised for giving a mistaken impression, but insists there's no basis for a defamation claim. In a statement, a spokesperson said the broadcaster will defend the case. Donald Trump spoke from the Oval Office.
In a little while, you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth, literally. They put words in my mouth. They had me saying things that I never said coming out. I guess they used AI or something. So we'll be bringing that lawsuit. A lot of people are asking, when are you bringing that lawsuit? Even the media can't believe that one. They actually put terrible words in my mouth having to do with January 6th that I didn't say.
In other news, UK police are stepping up armed patrols on the transport network and in other crowded places as they warn of an increased terror risk over the festive period. Senior officers from counter-terror policing and the British Transport Police have issued a joint call for vigilance following the recent attacks targeting the Jewish community in Manchester in Australia, warning that mass gatherings over the Christmas period and New Year period remain an attractive target for terrorists. Meanwhile, the driver who ploughed into crowds at Liverpool's Premier League victory parade has been jailed for 21 years and 6 months. Paul Doyle injured 134 supporters after driving his car into fans. The court heard the 54-year-old lost his temper and acted in what a judge called inexplicable fury. Dashcam footage showed supporters thrown onto the bonnet and dragged beneath the car as Doyle shouted abuse and accelerated through closed streets. Doyle pleaded guilty to 31 offences, including attempting to cause grievous bodily harm to a 6-month-old baby. A 5-day doctors' strike in England will go ahead this week after talks collapsed. The BMA says 83% of members voted to continue industrial action. The Prime Minister called the decision irresponsible, with flu cases surging and hospitals under pressure. Resident doctors say their pay is still far lower than it was in real terms 15 years ago. Emergency and non-urgent care will be affected from tomorrow morning. Senior doctors will step in to provide cover. And UK unemployment has risen to 5.1%, its highest level since early 2021. The ONS says young people are being hit the hardest, with unemployment among 18 to 24-year-olds jumping by 85,000. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch spoke this afternoon.
It's just another day of bad news from Labour. What we're seeing is an advent calendar of misery. It's Christmas time. People want to know that they're going to have a job, that they're going to be earning more money, they can do their Christmas shopping, they can survive. And instead, what we've had is low growth, more people losing their jobs, and no good news at all for the foreseeable future.
Those are the latest headlines. For now, it's over to Patrick.
Good evening. Britain is in the midst of an illegal migrant and asylum seeker sex assault epidemic. In recent weeks, illegal migrants have been found guilty of murders, rapes and sexual attacks, almost always against young, vulnerable women and girls. And in fact, just today, the Daily Mail ran a report mapping the areas where criminal asylum seeker sex attackers have preyed on vulnerable women since breaking in to Britain. But of course, what you never hear is the victims and survivors themselves. But tonight, that changes. Now, Abby is a young teenage girl who was out doing what normal teenage girls do. She was going for a few drinks with her mates in a local town, a place that she felt safe, a place that really she should have been safe. And this is the story of how an innocent, childlike game of hide and seek after a night out turned into a predatory, life-changing sexual assault at the hands of an Iranian asylum seeker who was inexplicably being supported by a Christian charity. It's also a tale of how Abby was let down badly by the police. Now, I want to remind viewers that this programme will contain distressing content, including discussion of sexual assault and mental health difficulties. If you are affected by any of these issues raised, support is available online at survivorstrust.org or samaritans.org. Now, just to recap, because I know that some people join us at 10 p.m. In the last hour, Abby did detail some of her attack.
I hear the leaves rustling and I turn around thinking it's my friend, but I couldn't see anything. And all I heard was a Middle Eastern accent ask me if I'm okay. He comes up to me and he grabs me by my face and he just starts kissing me. I then pull away as I did not want that whatsoever, and I'm like, no, I just need to get back to my friends. No, I just need to get back to my friends. That was all that I could say. And then he starts touching my boobs. He did not say anything. He didn't stop. He didn't take any notice. And so that goes on, and then he starts making his way down and he unbuttons my jeans and does the zip and pulls my trousers down. And I'm frozen. I don't know what to do. And he's still touching me, and all I can say is, no, I need to get back to my friends. But he isn't saying anything. All I can hear is like heavy breathing and feel his stubble, and you know, then he gets his hand and he starts to make his way down, so he goes onto my pubic area, and now I'm just completely frozen.
Look, at this point, I want to say that, you know, Abby does obviously look very young. She is young. She looks younger than she is. She's 19 years old, and we are supporting Abby and her family through this. They reached out to us because they wanted, I suppose, the chance to explain what's happened to her, to try to help others. She also outlined the impact that this has had on her life.
It has affected every single part of my life. You know, before this all happened, I felt like I was, you know, a normal teenage girl, you know, living her life, and now I feel like I'm living with precaution. Every time I leave my house, I'm wondering who's around the corner. You know, I never feel safe, not even in my own home, which is horrible. It's took a big toll on my mental health as well, especially where I felt so out of control of my own body. I feel like I don't have any control of any aspect of my life because it can be taken away from you so quickly.
Her attacker is an Iranian asylum seeker called Ahmadreza Khalafi, who pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault earlier this month. He's been remanded in custody. He's due to be sentenced fully in February. Now, shortly I'll play you what Abby says she wants to happen to this man, and she's also got a message to the Prime Minister, to the Home Secretary. But as you all know, every single victim and survivor of sexual assault gets lifelong anonymity. So what I wanted to show you was why Abby says that she has bravely come forward to waive her right to anonymity so that she can discuss what happened to her.
I have nothing to be ashamed about. I can't change what happened to me whatsoever. But if I can just do a little bit to save someone else from going through what I went through, then I will do that. And also, he hasn't seen me since. I haven't had my voice. I haven't been able to tell my story. But this has given me the chance to feel that I can get my voice out there, and, you know, he can see who he's done it to, who he's hurt, whose life he has affected. You know, he'll get out. He'll get benefits, he'll get housed, he'll get everything handed to him, and I get absolutely nothing. I just get a lifelong worth of trauma that I have to deal with for the rest of my life, and he doesn't have to go through any of that, which I think is so unfair. But if I can get my face and my voice out there and tell people what has happened to me and what he has done, then I will do that, and hopefully save someone else from going through what I went through.
How powerful is that? What amazing collected words that is from a young girl who has gone through unimaginable trauma. Now, her attacker is currently on remand in prison, having pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault. The Home Office will not tell us if he will be automatically deported, or actually how he came to be in Britain. He is due to be sentenced on February the 5th. Here is what Abby hopes happens next. At what point do you find out that this man is an Iranian asylum seeker?
I found out from news articles. Yeah.
Could you talk me through that? How did that happen?
So I didn't know what he looked like, obviously. I wasn't allowed to know his name. I wasn't allowed to know his age. They would not tell me anything. So I've already gone through this trauma, and now I don't even know who's done it to me. I don't know anything about them. And I remember I found out his name through when he went to court for his plea. My mum went along and obviously was able to find out the name for the case. But I didn't find out he was Iranian or an asylum seeker or his age until I saw on a news article online. I think I found it on Facebook, where it stated that information, and that's when I found it out on an article.
When you found out that he was an asylum seeker,
yeah.
How did that make you feel?
I felt quite betrayed, because I knew that, I just believe that they should have done more background checks, you know. It wasn't even someone that, you know, he was let into this country. He was granted this right to come into this country, and that is what he does. I felt like he disrespected the country, disrespected me, came in with no respect whatsoever. It just felt quite horrible that in my own country I'm made a victim, and I'm sexualised, and I am assaulted and attacked. It was a horrible feeling. Yeah.
One of the other aspects to this is that he was, for a period of time, housed in accommodation by a local Christian charity. Yeah. And we know that plenty of asylum seekers, especially from Iran, and we don't know if this is specifically the case with this guy, but are claiming that they can't be sent back to Iran or other Muslim countries because of their Christian beliefs. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that, given what's happened to you?
I don't believe it, to be honest. I believe, you know, Christianity is a strong faith, and it's a beautiful religion. And I don't believe if you were so strong about your religion and the respect and everything like that, loving each other the same, you would not have done what you done to me, because you had no respect, you had no faith, you had no good intentions in that moment, you couldn't have cared about my safety any less. So I don't believe that it's to do with religion at all. I don't know.
What do you want to happen to this man now?
I want him to serve his time for what he's done to me, because, you know, he deserves to have to serve his time. But after that, I would feel most safe if he got deported, because at the moment I feel like my coping mechanism is the fact I know he's locked up, I know he's in jail. I'm not going to bump into him on the street, which makes things a little bit easier. But once he's served his sentence and he's out there, I know I'm going to be a nervous wreck. That, you know, the worry that I feel now is going to be multiplied by like 100. It's going to be horrible, because I know that he is out there roaming the streets. I could bump into him. So I would feel most safe if he was deported, because then I know that I wouldn't bump into him. But that conversation left me feeling, you know, a bit low, and felt like I wasn't the main priority, because...
Talk to me about that conversation. So what you're referring to there, I believe, is a conversation that you had with police, is it? Where you made it clear to them that you were hoping that this man would be sent back to Iran.
Yeah. So the policewoman that I was talking to, she was saying that she hopes that is what would happen too. They would look for that to happen. However, you know, with Iran not being a safe country, they have a duty of care. And if it's not safe enough, there could be a chance that he is not deported, as it wouldn't be safe enough. And I just felt, you know, you've already put me in an unsafe situation.
We obviously have huge issues with our asylum system at the moment in Britain.
Yeah.
And we have large numbers of mostly men from very similar parts of the world to the man who attacked you coming in nearly every day. How does that make you feel? What kind of risk do you think that poses? And what is your message to people who say that this isn't a risk and this isn't a problem?
I feel like people who say that this isn't a risk or isn't a problem are people that haven't had something like this happen to them. It's only until you are affected by, you know, people coming into the country, and every single day all these people that no one knows about, no background checks are done, till you realise how much of a serious problem that it is. And, you know, I just want other people to understand the point of view when we say that it's not safe. You know, no one knows who's coming in, no one is doing these checks on these people, and then it's people like me who was a normal person before and now facing the consequences of these people, you know, coming in. No one knows who they are, nothing is checked on them, no research, nothing, and we're having to face the consequences in our own country for people that are coming here for, you know, a better life, but then making ours worse. It's horrible. It's horrible.
I think there is quite a good chance that people like the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister will watch this interview, and they will have heard what you've had to say, and they'll have seen your bravery and courage in coming forward and talking about this devastating incident and the consequences that it's had for you.
Yeah.
If Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, or Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, were here in this room now, what would you say to them?
I'd want them to maybe rethink how much they're letting in, because, you know, it's affecting so many people, including myself, and it's only until, you know, not everyone gets this chance to speak up and get that message out there. I'm not the only one this has happened to. It's happened to so many people. But I'm just lucky enough to get this chance, so I just want them to really understand that these things do happen, and this is the result of it. And, you know, they might just think it's, you know, for housing, letting them in, you know, doing a good thing, but really in the end of it, it's not. It's putting people at danger, your own people at danger in their own country, and I don't think it's fair. You know, I think we should, you know, understand the severity of the situation and realise that it's not always positive, and these horrible things do happen to people like myself and many other people in this world. So I would want them to really understand that you know, it's not all great, and that they should really understand that it ends up quite nasty sometimes. Yeah.
I know there's a huge amount of people watching this right now who are incredibly emotional. I'm incredibly emotional watching it back as well. I think for me it's just how measured she is, actually, really, and I think we could all just learn a thing or two from Abby. A couple of devastating lines in there, weren't there? You know, it's happened to so many people, she says. That's one of the main reasons she's coming forward, to try to give others a bit of strength and hope. You know, she said that there's people coming here for a better life, but making ours worse. You know, it's incredibly difficult, I think, for people to look at that and look at someone like Abby and think that there's anything other than a serious national crisis here that needs sorting ASAP. But the Home Office will not tell us how this man came into the country. They won't comment on whether or not he'll face automatic deportation. However, we do have a spokesperson for the Home Office who has said this: our thoughts are with this brave survivor and all survivors of sexual violence. This government will not allow foreign criminals and illegal migrants to exploit our laws, which is why we are reforming human rights laws and replacing the broken appeals system, allowing us to scale up deportations. The Home Secretary has announced the most sweeping reforms to tackle illegal migration in modern times, which will make Britain a less attractive destination for illegal migrants and will make it easier to remove and deport them. All foreign national offenders who receive a prison sentence in the UK are referred for deportation at the earliest opportunity. So make of that what you will. But in the next section, you are going to hear about how Abby was just catastrophically let down by the police. You find out that presumably around the same time, maybe actually 24 hours, 48 hours after that, they had also dropped him off. How close are we talking?
We're talking a few houses down the road, yeah.
And they didn't tell you this?
No. I was not informed.
You know, we're supporting Abby and her family through all of this. You know, again, the only reason we know about this catalogue of disaster is because Abby has bravely decided to come forward and say it. And I think it does make you wonder, yeah, how often does this really happen? But her mum, Stacey, also has a message for us.
And I'd like to ask, if it was their daughter, would they still have the same views? Would they still be doing what they're doing if it was one of their own?
She's also going to tell you about the moment that she came face to face with her daughter's attacker in the courtroom, and that's next.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Well, he went to Sandhurst and graduated, and then decided the Paras wanted him, so he decided to go Royal Artillery. And he loved being in the army. He loved the camaraderie, the spirit, everything else. And he had a great career ahead of him. Went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and came back, and everything was fine. We were so relieved as parents. And then the signs started to be there of PTSD. It was quite a while after he came back that they sort of manifested themselves, and yeah, everything went downhill after that. And it was a long fight for him to try and get help, but there was no help available. There was no one he could turn to. And in the end, my wife and I, we had to care for him, which was very, very difficult for all of us. And there, you know, he was with us for about 18 months, and then in the end he passed away. He had an enlarged heart. He was struggling very much with PTSD, so he turned to alcohol, but as most veterans do when they have this problem. And in the end, he obviously passed away 8 years ago, and we had no help at the time, and we didn't have anybody giving us advice or where we could go. And I was with Nigel. I went to Combat to Coffee a few years ago with Nigel, and we got this the author of the book, Rob Parker, presented this to us and sent it to me, and everything in here in this book was so true. And with us, it was like a manual for us, or a diary really, of what was happening and what could happen.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. So, look, just to recap quickly, we've been talking about the case of an Iranian asylum seeker who has pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault. He's currently on remand in prison, due to be sentenced on the 5th of February. You're hearing from Brave Abby, who's 19 years old, who's waived her right to anonymity, wanted to do that to get her story out there so that she can act as a beacon of hope, really, to others, but also show her attacker exactly how defiant she is. She was on a perfectly innocent night out with friends, something I'm sure we've all done at around that age, and it is raising serious questions now about, how our broken asylum system is putting vulnerable young girls at risk in this country. And it's the first time I can remember, really, that people have been able to see one of those young people come out and talk about it publicly. But sadly, after the attack, things did get worse for Abby, because, as it turns out, she was catastrophically let down by the police.
There is something that you mentioned to me earlier, that at some point in this process, you found out where he'd been living.
Yeah.
Could you explain to the viewers and listeners what happened there?
So this is another thing that I am really angry about. On the way back from the SARC, I got dropped home to grab some stuff, as I informed them that I wanted to stay with my friend that night, and they said that they would drop me there. So they dropped me to my friend's house, sent me off there, knew exactly where I was staying, and then I found out that when he was put on bail and placed in housing, they placed him a few doors down from where she lived, which they knew that I was there because they dropped me there, and they knew I did dance there. They knew I was in the area all the time, and that is where they placed him a few doors down.
So you have just gone to a sexual assault clinic. You've had whatever examinations they've done there, and the police themselves dropped you back at a property. Yeah. So they knew where you'd been dropped at. Yeah. And then you find out that presumably around the same time, maybe actually 24 hours, 48 hours after that, they had also dropped him off. How close are we talking?
We're talking a few houses down the road, yeah.
And they didn't tell you this?
No. I was not informed. Apparently I wasn't allowed to know, but I believe if you've put me in that situation, because they came out afterwards and said, oh, we were so worried about you, knowing that you was always in that area. And I'm thinking, why did you do it then? Why did you place him there and didn't even inform me? It was only until after he was put on remand in prison that we found out that that is where he was staying, and I was never informed. So I was walking around, I was probably walking past the house, multiple times a week. He could have seen me, I could have seen him and not even known, because I still didn't know what he looked like, and I was never informed. I was completely clueless.
So he will have probably known what you looked like. You had no idea at this point what he looked like. And for what could be a period of weeks or months, you are in the vicinity of this man, any time of the day, any time of night. How does that make you feel, knowing that now that you were in that situation unknowingly for a long period of time?
I just feel so let down. The police are the ones that are there to protect you and keep you safe, and then you've went and put me in a situation where I am probably most unsafe. You know, you didn't think about my safety. I just believe they were so worried about housing him that they did not acknowledge my safety whatsoever, when in the actual end of it, I am the victim and I'm the one that has been attacked, and you put me in a situation where he could have possibly done it again. You know, luckily he didn't, but you've put me in a situation with my attacker a few doors away in the exact same area, knowing what has happened, without informing me. It made me feel just so let down, and worried for what could have happened. Yeah.
Just again, I'd like to say to Abby what an amazing young woman she is, an absolutely incredible young lady who's bravely waived her right to anonymity there to share her story. Look, joining us now to discuss this, before we hear again from Abby's mum, by the way, is Reform UK councillor Layla Cunningham. We've also got GBNews contributor and political commentator Kai Wilshaw and External Affairs Officer at the Free Speech Union, Connie Shaw. Layla, I'll come to you. That last bit that we heard there about how she says she feels so let down, that basically they made every effort to try to house him, and in the process of doing that, essentially, she would say, willfully put her at danger of bumping into him in the street.
Yeah, I mean, just before I say anything, I'm in awe of Abby. I'm in awe of her strength, her eloquence. I mean, she iterates almost how the nation feels, you know, especially when she said that he came here for a better life, but it's ended up making our lives worse. And that is the heart of it all, and that's what the government needs to understand, that the government is here to serve the British people. It is not here to serve anyone else. And right now, Abby and others here feel that they're serving illegal migrants coming on boats, and they're prioritising their needs over ours. And she's right, because this is a man who came here illegally. He was granted protection over her protection, and that is a failure by the state. You know, she trusted the state to protect her, and the state let her down so badly. And, you know, they keep releasing slogans, you know, women and protection, but as long as they keep housing unvetted men near girls like Abby, women will never be safe.
And I think one of the important things here, Connie, as well, and this is something that I do hope comes across here, is we're not going to say exactly where Abby lives, obviously, but it's a bit out of the way. Right, it's not in a major city. We're not talking about central London here, where I think most people accept that it's a very, very busy area. There's millions of people. You know, we've been having hotels full of asylum seekers for however long, and there's a certain amount of natural risk that comes, unfortunately, with living in a big, densely populated city. She doesn't live there, right? She lives a bit out of the way. And now this is a problem, the asylum seeker problem, is starting to affect people in more rural areas, in places, market towns, where, let's be honest, when you're, in Abby's case, 19, but let's be really honest, 17, 18, 19, you go out for a couple of pints with your mates and you don't think anything of it, but now you have to worry.
I think, like you were saying, the fact that Abby lives out of the way, this is exactly the kind of story that Keir Starmer and David Lammy don't want the public to hear, because they don't trust the public anymore. Like, now we have seen the increasing prevalence of identifying suspects when we hear about reports of crimes like this, because the authorities have recognised that by hiding the identities, that's actually making things worse. Abby may not realise it yet, but she is serving her country by talking about this story, because, like you said earlier, Patrick, seeing the face behind something like this will pique the nation. It will shatter any illusion that there is nothing going on, nothing to see here. And Abby will go down in history books as one of the bravest women speaking out against what is going on to our country and to women up and down the nation. And just thinking about the upside-down world and our priorities, the way that we have got them so wrong. Remember Jamie Michael? I know he's had a lot of coverage, but remember how he was remanded in custody for 17 days for something he said on Facebook, ironically, about protecting children from illegal immigration. This man was originally released on bail.
Yeah, it does seem topsy-turvy. Kai, look, you know, from everything you've heard so far, what is something that stands out for you from what you've heard here? What would you like to say about it?
I think Abby's message to Shabana Mahmood and to Keir Starmer is quite powerful. You know, essentially saying, won't you pay attention until it happens to somebody close to you? And I think that's the reality for so many people across the country, where you can't put a face to a certain issue. It's easy for people of the left and the right to decide what they think based on what they already thought anyway, right? And that's why a story like this is really powerful, and I hope people pay attention to it.
She's actually being very measured.
Yeah, she absolutely is. And you can't hide, I think often in politics, people want to hide behind stats or so on, cherry-pick stats to suit their agenda. But actually what this does, humanises it, gives you a face and a story where actually you can't avoid it. And I think what the Labour government has done, like previous governments, but I think with Shabana Mahmood they're beginning to change, is they're just too late to recognise that you don't need stats to explain the human cost of an issue, and this really brings it to life. And I really hope that they bring some of the urgency that they brought to other issues very slowly, that they bring that to bear now.
The thing is, Abby said what we're all thinking. If ministers really want to protect women, they would treat border control as part of that mission. Right, so they've introduced a new strategy for the safety of women and girls. We're going to talk to boys at school. We're going to do this. No, you have to treat border control as the #1 priority, or one of the top priorities for that mission, and sadly they're not.
As a national emergency.
Because when they talk about border control and controlling it, they're not talking... Shabana Mahmood's policy doesn't stop illegal migration, it controls it. Right, and when they talk about the effects of it, the safety of women and girls is never mentioned.
Well, let's also just consider the actual what happened here. Again, we're going to go to a statement quickly by Hertfordshire Police and come on to Abby's mum, Stacey. But, you know, this guy was lurking, waiting. There's no indication from anyone, as it stands, that he was in this bar or nightclub or pub that Abby was in. You know, it's early hours of the morning, you're there, you're waiting, you're lurking. That indicates a certain type of psychology. And this guy's pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault. He's going to be sentenced in February. We are going to be following this case and hopefully, you know, maintaining contact with Abby and her family, who we are supporting throughout all of this. And I hope that they do feel, you know, that we're doing everything that we can. But a spokesperson for Hertfordshire Police has told GB News, we are aware that a number of concerns have been raised, which we are taking extremely seriously. And we're working at pace with partners in the criminal justice system and our professional standards department to review the issues raised. Victim care is our priority. We take all reports of sexual assault seriously and will always thoroughly investigate in order to bring offenders to justice. We have specially trained officers on hand to provide advice and support to victims throughout. And of course, this is in relation to the perpetrator, who's now in prison, being housed right near Abby. And they said, upon his initial arrest, police charged and remanded Khalafi. He was released on court bail with conditions following his first court appearance. During his next appearance, police raised concerns around the suitability of his bail address and made an application for bail to be revoked. He was subsequently remanded. Look, just a reminder that if you have been affected by any of the issues raised this evening, support is available online by visiting the survivorstrust.org or samaritans.org. And coming up, Abby and her mum Stacey do have an all-important message to the Prime Minister.
And I'd like to ask, if it was their daughter, would they still have the same views? Would they still be doing what they're doing if it was one of their own?
I know this is a difficult watch, but it's the story of our time. And I would urge you to just keep watching for a little bit longer. Thank you.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're thinking of heading overseas for a holiday, well, you'll find plenty of fine weather in Greece and Cyprus, Italy too, but fairly showery with the keen northerly breeze for the Canary Islands and some heavy rain across eastern Spain. That's going to stick around for a couple of days. Meanwhile, ahead of another area of low pressure, Italy and Greece are largely fine, but there is another low on the way, arriving into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, after what has been a largely fine day for many of us, things are set to change through the next 24 hours, with some wet weather going to arrive in time for tomorrow. That's all due to a weather system that's currently out towards the west of us. But before this, we have a ridge of high pressure, and so relatively quiet weather across us through large chunks of the night. As a result, we're going to have a lot of dry weather, yes, but also quite a lot of clear skies. And with that, we're going to see some mist and fog patches developing, particularly across central and eastern parts. They could be quite dense. Also worth noting that temperatures are going to drop a little bit lower than some recent nights, so a chillier start to the day tomorrow. Could even be a touch of frost around. So first thing tomorrow, a chilly start, yes. Largely dry across central and southern parts of England and also across the east, but watch out for those fog patches. A different story towards the north and west, however. That front that I mentioned at the start, that will have spread its way in. And so we're going to see some fairly persistent and at times heavy rain across many places. And with all that wet weather, the winds will be strengthening as well. So a blustery, wet start to the day for most. Clinging on to the dry weather across the far east of England through much of the day. Elsewhere, it's going to be pretty wet at times. The highest rainfall totals likely to build up over parts of South Wales and southwest England. Dartmoor, for example, could see 40 to 60 millimetres, enough to cause some disruption. Temperatures on paper are a few degrees above average for the time of year, but with the unsettled weather, well, it's not going to feel particularly pleasant. Then as we go into Thursday, there's more rain set to push its way in, a swathe of even heavier rain coming in from the southwest. So watch out for that, as it could cause some more disruption with the ground already so saturated. Friday for many actually looks like a largely fine end to the week, but a more changeable pattern into the weekend. Bye-bye.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well look, for those just joining us, we've obviously been discussing and viewing Abby's story. Abby has waived her right to anonymity so that she can discuss the harrowing attack that happened involving an Iranian asylum seeker. Now, we've also been speaking to Abby's mum, Stacey, and she's going to outline to you now what happened the moment she came face to face with her daughter's attacker, the level of support that she feels that he's been getting in relation to her daughter, and also what she wants to happen to him once he's served his sentence. That's now. You want this guy out of this country, I think.
Yeah, I do, because I know my fear for Abby is when he's released. I think as much as she's struggling with life at the moment, the only comfort she's got is that he's behind bars, which has given her a level of safety and security. But when he comes out, I fear how much that's going to affect her then. So, yeah, I would want him deported back.
Mm. You made your views clear, I think, didn't you, at the time, to relevant authorities, the police. What were you told?
I said that once he's done his sentence, will he automatically be deported back? And I was told that that would be unlikely because Iran's not classed as a safe country and they can't put him back where they believe he wouldn't be safe. Mm. So they said it was unlikely. They said that it would be down to the Home Office, it's nothing to do with the police or the barristers or whatever, it would ultimately be their decision, but the chances are it would be unlikely that he would be deported back.
Mm. And how does that make you feel then?
Really angry, because I feel like he's got all this protection and there's so much care for his welfare. And I think, well, what about my daughter? What about everyone else's daughters? Their safety doesn't mean anything. It's the focus feels like it's very much on him and what's best for him rather than Abby or anyone else.
Now, where we are today feels like a very safe area. In fact, as I was driving up here today, I thought, gosh, what a wonderful place this would be to raise a family. I've got a young family. I think this would be lovely around here. It feels safe, doesn't it? And some of the surrounding areas. To think that something like this could happen around here, I just wonder if that's a bit of a wake-up call to people that this can happen anywhere now, really.
Yeah, and to be honest, up until just over a year ago, we lived in London. Loved London. However, we decided to move out a bit for what we thought would be a safer environment for the kids to grow up in. So I'm shocked, but it just shows that you're not safe anywhere. It doesn't matter how nice your neighbourhood is or what, it happens everywhere.
Look, obviously, unfortunately, crimes have always happened. People have always done unspeakable things to other people at times. But when you think back to when you were growing up and maybe when you were Abby's age and you were going out and things, do you feel as though it's less safe now as a result of what we're seeing going on with the asylum system?
100%, yeah. It's not safe, and I think what's really sad is that every day I'm hearing another story. And these are just the stories that we're aware of. I'm sure there's many more that we don't know about. But it's really disappointing that it's now kind of the normal. Like, how is it normal to be hearing these stories every day? It's like it's just the norm now, and it doesn't matter. It's really disappointing, and I think the world's a scary place now. No one's safe, especially young girls and women.
Mm. You had a situation, I believe, where you had to sit opposite this man in court in the waiting room, did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that like?
The hardest thing I've ever done. To sit there so close to the man that's hurt my child was difficult.
You all right?
Yeah. I was so angry, and sorry. All I could see was this network of support around him. All these people there helping him, and all along my daughter was at home on her own with no support. That was hard. That waiting room, and then all of a sudden he then required an interpreter, and I just feel like he just had instant access to all of these things to help and enable him, while my daughter got nothing at all.
What do you make of the fact that he was being helped by a church group?
I think it's ridiculous. I don't for 1 minute believe that he was changing his religion. I think it's just a get-out clause. It's a tick-box exercise to give the right answers to get the support of our country.
This is the idea that it appears that he might have been trying to claim that he was converting from Islam to Christianity as a way of being unable to go back home to Iran because he might face persecution.
Yeah, that was the reason that the police told us, was that his father was very strict on his religion, and that was why he come to the country to find God.
Mm. And you don't buy that?
No. If he was coming and he was genuinely converting to Christianity, what he's done is not very Christian. So no, I think it's so many cases that I've read up on, it's the same story. It's the same thing. It's just, I think they just say and do what's going to get them the most, and by doing that you're going to get supported. Mm. So no, I don't buy it at all.
When you look at the asylum system that we've got at the moment, and you continue to see articles and reports about the amount of people, mostly men, who are coming into this country every day and the accommodation that they're going to be put in, how does that make you feel, given what your family has been through?
Really angry. Really, really angry. I think my biggest thing, and I actually asked the police about this, is that all these people coming into the country, is there no checks done, you know, any background checks from their country? Because one of the things that come up in Abby's case is that he was kind of promoted as this, you know, really good character that's not been in any trouble before, and I brought up, well, how do you know that? Because there's no background check, so how do you know that? And how do you know that Abby's case is the first offence that he's committed? He could have done lots of things and just managed to get away with it. And I was told, which really shocked me and angered me a lot, was that they did actually contact Iran's police force to try and get some kind of background check on him to find out if there was any previous offences. And they weren't at liberty to answer. However, if he'd been a drug baron or he'd killed someone, we could actually enforce that we're given that information. But because it's just a sexual assault or a rape, they've got no right to get that information.
From Iran?
Yeah.
Which does indicate perhaps the way that Iran views
it's
women
sexual
and
assault.
sexual assault.
I took from that, you know, sexual assault and rape is nothing. It's not a big enough crime. But if it had been a different crime, they would have been able to...
Well, that tells you a lot, possibly, about the attitudes towards women and girls in that country. What would your message to the Home Office be? What would your message to the Prime Minister be when it comes to this individual?
To stop what they're doing, or if you are going to help people, that there needs to be more robust checks on these people. We need to know why they're running. You know, they're giving the reason why they're coming to this country, but we don't know that that's true. You don't know whether they've done something in that country and that's why they're running. There needs to be more checks done, and I think there should also be that if people do come to this country and they commit a crime, to me that should be instant deportation. They should then be sent back home. And I'd like to ask, if it was their daughter, would they still have the same views? Would they still be doing what they're doing if it was one of their own? I don't think they would. If they've gone through the nightmare that Abby's gone through, or gone through the nightmare that us as the family's gone through, would they still have that same opinion? Would they still allow for these people to come in our country? And like I say, you're hearing about stories daily. This is becoming the norm, and that's so wrong. It's so wrong. We're not safe in our country now, and I feel like that the people that are coming to our country have got more rights and more protection than what we have.
Well, there you go. Look, over the course of tonight's show, you've heard a lot there from the brave survivor, Abby, just 19 years old, waived her right to anonymity, and her mum, Stacey, and the messages that they've had to put a face, really, and a family to these relentless tidal wave of stories that we are seeing about asylum seeker, illegal migrant sexual assaults. Connie, I'll come to you on this. I mean, again, there was that idea there that we probably or possibly won't deport this guy because he's saying that he's a Christian now and his dad is a strict Muslim back in Iran, and it would be unconscionable to send him back there.
I mean, frankly, I don't care, and also that sounds awful, but I don't care, let's not kid ourselves. We know that Christians are persecuted in Iran. That's exactly why they say that they have converted to Christianity. And that's not to say that, you know, I know many Iranian people who love the West, who hate the Islamic regime there, but at this point, we have to at some point say that enough is enough. We need to close the borders to these places now.
There's been a lot of kind of key quotes, I think, from tonight. One of them there, Layla, though, I think, was from Abby's mum, Stacey. She says, you know, the Prime Minister responded, if this was your daughter that this had happened to, you'd be doing everything to stop it, wouldn't you? Do you think they should maybe heed that a little bit?
100%. And then she also said that they seem to prioritise his safety and his needs over hers. And I think the whole nation is asking this government and the previous government, whose side are you on? You know, are you on our side or are you on our enemy's side? Because when you put people in communities without knowing who they are, Patrick, you are gambling with public safety, and that's what they're saying. And it's girls like Abby who pay the price for government's decisions. And so I think Abby's right and her mother's right to ask the government, whose side are you on? You know, who are you going to prioritise?
Yeah, and Kai, look, there is a way back from this, I think. You know, we can still get control of our borders. We can still start deporting criminals. We can you know, have more sensible immigration policies. And I think the point there is that, you know, it's absolutely devastating that Abby has gone through what she's gone through. She didn't need to go through what she went through. But other women and girls don't have to now either. And we can still get a hold of this situation, I feel, Kai.
Yeah, and that's what I think is critical. I share the horror that everybody, I'd imagine, watching has felt, right? But we, as important as this is, we can't completely... I don't think it's right to completely shut down the borders.
He should.
But it needs to be treated as an emergency. I completely agree. And I do think that the Labour government... You said earlier that you don't think the Labour government is on the side of women and girls. I think they are, but they need to do a damn better job of showing it. Because otherwise, people like reform will show that they...
Do you think Abby thinks that this government's on her side?
No, I don't, because they're not showing it. I totally agree.
If you're not showing it, you're not on the side.
I don't think they're being effective enough. I don't think they're treating it as urgently as they should, but I do think in their heart of hearts they believe this is important, yes.
Kai, actions speak louder than words. They might say stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
So you're saying they haven't shown it yet. For me, not showing it means they don't care.
They need to demonstrate it. I completely agree.
It's through action that you demonstrate it.
You're making my point for me. I'm saying they need to prove it.
But they haven't.
All right. Well, look, just to round us off, I would like to say a big thank you to my panel this evening. I mean, it's been incredibly difficult to obviously sit and listen to all of that and then you know, speak so eloquently off the back of it as well. Look, overwhelmingly, I'd just like to say a monumental thank you to Abby and her mum, Stacey, and say how grateful I am that they reached out and that they trusted us to tell the story in the way that they wanted it to be told. I hope we are supporting Abby and her family and will continue to do so. We're going to stay in touch with them, and I don't think this is the last that you're going to hear of them. But I hope anyway, that in what has been a tidal wave of negative stories and unimaginable horror in relation to asylum seeker and legal migrant sex offences, what you have seen there is the human side of the family, the survivors behind that, and that they can remain dignified, powerful and eloquent in the face of such extreme adversity. And I, just on behalf of everyone at GB News, want to say a massive thank you to Abby.
It's the big one. Your chance to win a whopping £85,000 in tax-free cash. The largest cash prize we've given away to date. That's like over £7,000 a month extra in your bank account each month for 12 whole months. That's a year of yes. Yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to shopping trips, yes to home improvements. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome along, everybody, to Patrick Christys Tonight, late edition. Another Brexit betrayal. The UK is set to rejoin the student exchange scheme with Europe.
A little while you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth, literally. They put words in my mouth.
Well, it's the end of the BBC as we know it, I think, isn't it? Not only is President Trump taking them to court, but it turns out that they might now have to show adverts for the first time, and you get the free licence fee if you live on benefits. This is actually made the front of several national newspapers tomorrow. Free BBC if you're on benefits. Plus, Britain's benefits queen. There's a lot about benefits in this particular show tonight. The mum of 15 who once raked in £60,000 a year in benefits is now the boss of her own business empire. I don't know what it is, but if it's not selling children's clothes, then there's no justice. Anyway, for the first time as well, caesareans are more popular than, what would you call them, natural births. Thank you very much, the person who got me out of a massive hole there in my ear. Natural births. Plus... What on earth was going through that man's mind? The Liverpool parade driver sentenced to 21 years. Well, joining us this evening, we've got political commentator Kai Wilshaw, broadcasting royalty Christo Foufas, and comedian and GB News contributor Paul Cox. But let's get the latest news headlines with Tatiana.
Patrick, thank you. The top stories this hour. Prosecutors in Los Angeles have filed murder charges against the son of Rob and Michelle Rayner, the Hollywood couple who were found dead in their home with multiple stab wounds on Sunday. Nick Rayner, 32, is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder and could be sentenced to life in prison if found guilty. During a news conference this evening, Mr Hochman also said no decision had yet been made about whether to seek the death penalty. Rob Rayner directed several iconic films in a variety of genres, including Misery and A Few Good Men. Elsewhere, Donald Trump says he is suing the BBC, launching a multi-billion-dollar legal action over what he calls a doctored edit of his January the 6th speech. The US president says a Panorama documentary falsely made it appear he called for violence at the Capitol, accusing the broadcaster of defamation and misleading editing. The BBC apologised for giving a mistaken impression, but insists there's no basis for a defamation claim. In a statement, a spokesperson said the broadcaster will defend the case. Elsewhere, UK police are stepping up armed patrols on the transport network and in other crowded places as they warn of an increased terror risk over the festive period. Senior officers from counter-terror policing and the British Transport Police have issued a joint call for vigilance following the recent attacks targeting the Jewish community in Manchester and Australia, warning that mass gatherings over the Christmas and New Year period remain an attractive target for terrorists. The driver who ploughed into crowds at Liverpool's Premier League victory parade has been jailed for 21 years and 6 months. Paul Doyle injured 134 supporters after driving his car into fans. The court heard the 54-year-old lost his temper and acted in what a judge called inexplicable fury. Dashcam footage showed supporters thrown onto the bonnet and dragged beneath the car as Doyle shouted abuse and accelerated through closed streets. Doyle pleaded guilty to 31 offences, including attempting to cause grievous bodily harm to a 6-month-old baby. The judge today said his actions caused horror and devastation